So hello everybody from the channel. It's been a lot of time since I recorded the last interview, but today a special day, a special guest, a friend over than everything. A long time friend, Rendon. We worked together in ICL some years ago, and now he's skyhawking in the new career in another company. And it's a pleasure having you with us. It's always been a nice friendship between us. We try to do our best. Me, South America, you in North America, in different sites, in different positions, but now we meet each other virtually, unfortunately, but
Yep,
someday in person again, my friend. So, thank you for accepting the conversation with me. The Brazilian audience
absolutely.
and the North America audience is going to be happy for listening about your experience and about the challenges you've been facing over there.
Great. Well, thanks
Great.
for having me, and it's good talking to you. As like we were saying earlier, it's been almost 5 years now since I've seen you last, so it's good to see you. Always look fondly back on my years at ICL, so I miss everybody there. So
Yeah, so I remember the day you joined. So ICL and Troy, our former boss, had a lot of expectation and said, "Hey, this guy is really good. He has a lot of fresh ideas. I think he's going to be a good addition to us." And he was right. So that was a little bit about your background on education and a little bit of your experience, Randall, please.
sure. So my background, my degree, I'm an industrial hygienist. I got a degree in industrial hygiene. Later on, I got a master's degree as well. ICL helped make that happen. But right out of school, got a job with ICL actually, um, and for those that I'm sure you've shared what ICL is, I would have to imagine, but those that don't know, they're a large chemical company based out of Israel, and I was very fortunate right out of school to work actually kind of took a worked backwards, I guess, if you will. I started, if you remember, Ugo, right out of the corporate office. I reported directly to Troy, so I was working on with Marcy and Troy right there, directly at the corporate team, which normally you work for 10, 15 plus years and then you go corporate, right? So it was kind of a little bit backwards, but I learned a lot. Troy and Marcy brought me under their wing and got to kind of see things from a corporate standpoint right out of the gate, which was, as time's progressed, I've found to be really valuable. But got to work for a couple different plants. Was introduced to hop probably around the same time you were, and that's probably one of the big things I was really excited uh, to learn about when I joined. And because I think the journey with ICL had started not too much sooner before I had joined in 2014. I think it was just that year prior
Yeah,
that
we
it was
started in
really
2012, 11, I think so.
yeah, yeah. So I was early on in the journey and kind of got the front row seat to what was happening from a corporate standpoint, and an opportunity came around that I got to go up to Halox, which is their Hammond, Indiana facility up there, and work there for about 2 years. And kind of from a hop standpoint, they were, one thing I've learned is different sites culturally either take hop to heart very quickly, and that was how Halox was. They just it was already something they kind of believed really fundamentally, and I wasn't the one that really introduced it. If you remember Frank was up there previous, kind of it was the initial, and I was the second one up, EHS manager at the time, and but that was the first time I really kind of got my hands dirty at a plant, both from just working at an actual physical facility and got to start implementing or using a lot of the hop tools, like learning teams and whatnot. Probably the most interesting learning team I had was actually there at Halox. We did a learning team on learning teams because we were doing so many learning teams. It was kind of ironic. they were actually not wanting to report things because we were doing learning teams so often. So it was kind of funny. The pendulum had swung so far the other direction. So, um, but then I moved to specialty fertilizers, which had their main presence was in South Carolina, had two facilities there and one in Ohio. And this was again, obviously, still with ICL. And there was a lot of compliance issues. There was a lot of and culture challenges that we had to and it's changed. We were able to change it, but didn't have a term at the time, but very much Taylorism existed at that facility. So that's kind of, I think, probably where I got my hands the dirtiest. Or first time I got my hands really dirty was going in there and making some big changes there. And I mean, I'll never forget, some of the biggest breakthrough we had there because we were having a hard time, really, from a leadership standpoint, making a change, and from a hawk standpoint, and we had. I was talking to one of our maintenance leads, and I was like, why are we struggling with hop here? And he's like, you know what, Rendon, I'll tell you. And he's like, let me tell you a story. And you, I'm sure aware, but I guess for the audience, we coated fertilizer there, and one of the coaters went down, and he was telling me that the plant manager at the time was barking at him on the radio, get the line up, we need to get it up, we need to get it up, we need to get it up. And the maintenance lead, explained to me that he said, screw it. He said another term. But he entered without a confined space, just changed the sensor and carried on. He said, that is your problem, right? And that was when we finally kind of I went to the leadership teams like, hey, look, you didn't use names about who it was, but hey, this is, and fortunately they were very humble about it and took the feedback well. And that's when we finally had a shift there. And so that plant, I still consider my baby. I actually went and visited them. I was down near there about a month ago, and I couldn't help myself but stop there and went and saw everybody. So it was really fun visiting after 4 years not being there. But um, then I decided wanted to get closer to family, so took a job back home in Utah with ICL's one of their main competitors, Enphos, actually. I didn't know it was at the time it was a confidential search, so I didn't find out until halfway through the interview process. So it wasn't a something I was specifically looking for, but went and worked for them. And they were at the time, I don't know where they're at today, but very traditional in their approach to safety. Had a lot of challenges there, and I really tried to implement HOP. And we had a a plant manager there that started, and he gave him Todd Conklin's pre-accident investigations book, and he's like, I want to do this. And we were having a really hard time selling it up the chain, but we were able to make some pretty significant changes there without really getting that buy-in. We had to kind of shield the plant, I guess, from kind of things that were happening from a corporate standpoint. But we were, at the end of the day, we're doing HOP. But had an opportunity. This plant manager and I actually ended up at the same place. We went to another company, and we worked well together, and it was ended up working out really well. But it was short lived. They unfortunately were very much had the Taylorism, very traditional views. Had a lot of financial challenges as well. That the plant manager that I worked with previously, he left, and then I was like, what, I need to find a place that supports HOP because I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of working for places that have no interest in HOP or have no desire to do HOP. So um, found a company, as we were talking earlier. I got a job with Compass Minerals. So they have an operation very similar to the ICL has at the Dead Sea, the evaporation ponds, but it's at the Great Salt Lake in Utah. and they had an existing operation there, and they were wanting to add a lithium operation. Um, and we uh, what drew me in there is the VP of operation. He awesome guy, and we clicked right off the bat. He had worked in Australia for many years, had become familiar with a lot of similar principles, psychological safety. He kind of brought it up through a different way. He'd never heard of like Todd Conklin, Bob Edwards, anyone like that, but was familiar with a lot of the same principles and wanted to kind of go down a similar path. And so got there and we talked top, and that was, and funny story is I actually brought that plant manager I'd worked with the two previous places. I recruited him to come work for us, and so I got to hire my old boss as my boss. And so he came over, and it was really exciting because we were designing and building a plant from the ground up, and we were looking at it from a hop standpoint. We were, all right, where's the shortcuts going to be? We had, folks that had worked in maintenance and operations that would eventually be like supervisors. And hey, where are they gonna cut corners? How can we make it easier to do it safe ways? The easy way. Those sorts of conversations. So it was a really exciting project. Unfortunately, the state of Utah made things a little difficult for us and passed some legislation that just made it not business friendly. And unfortunately, they canceled the project and was laid off. And that's what led me to where I'm at today with Hitachi Energy. And it's been really exciting because I get to do now HOP full time. And so they were introduced to HOP through my boss actually was introduced through Cargill, so he had some experience with it in the past. But we actually have a global head of HOP, but he had followed around Andy Baker for many years, and they made a decision that here in North America, after doing a pilot at one of their Virginia sites, they wanted to you know launch it throughout the North American region. So that's why I was brought on, and we were really just getting our journey started. And that's I've been did a learning team at one of our Tennessee facility. That's why I'm in a hotel room. We did a learning team today, their first learning team at that facility today. So it's been really exciting, kind of starting things from the ground up, and excited where we're going. So sorry that was
Wow.
a long-winded answer, but that's
No, no,
me.
but it's important to make a timeline. And it seems like you are 60 years old, but it's not. So
Oh
so
no.
it's a long stuff, a long career moving here and there. But what caught my attention, Randall, is that usually most or many of us we start by companies applying the traditional view and then evolve or change. I don't want to be offensive, but saying evolve, but changing for a new view or new way of doing things. And you did the opposite. You started by the new view, and then you moved to the
Old
companies
view.
in the tradition, more focused on Taylorism and traditional view. How was it? How was making this shift to survive? Because at the end of the day, you needed the job, and you probably you were thinking, okay, I will arrive there and I will see what they have, and then I will put my ideas, I will evolve, I will show them Hop, and they were gonna buy it. But according to your first answer, it was not the case in most of the situation. So how was this for you doing the opposite, starting by what we people go there after? You did the opposite way. And the same thing for corporate, as you said. Now I have a corporate position, but I started by the plants, and you did the opposite as well. So
Yeah,
you you
a
have
very
an
untraditional
unorthodox
track of
career.
my
So
career.
talk a little bit about those 2 points for us,
We'll
please.
just blame Troy for that. That's fine. So I hope he's listening at some point.
Yeah,
But
so
yeah, no, it was hard. Like I remember, we had our first reportable injury at my one of the plant at Innophos, and obviously we had to, they wanted to investigate it traditionally, and I was really pushing to do a learning team. I was like, hey, this is the new way. This is kind of how the industry's going. And they're like, and just wasn't given the opportunity. So unfortunately, I was put through, traditional, you know, fault tree analysis, think reliability method is what they use there. And the first time I did it, I did a root cause analysis. And again, this is 6, 7 years into my career after doing HOP. I felt so dirty doing a like it just felt wrong, fundamentally wrong what I was doing because I mean and you probably know this from going from traditional to the new view is when you do those fault trees, you know exactly what direction you're going with those fault trees. You have preconceived notion. It's just surface level things. Whereas the learning teams, you dig into the real stuff, and it was really challenging, and from not just investigation, but focusing on the leading, the lagging indicators versus leading, that being the main focus, and just it was really challenging. And where it was even more challenging was the second company I worked for when I moved on from ICL. They we created the openness that employees started sharing with us how work was actually happening, right? And they freaked out because we started recordable injuries went up, near misses went up, first aids went up because people were actually telling us about those things. And they essentially told me this has got to go back underground. And I just was like, that was when I was like, I see, I'm no longer doing this. I'm not interested in going in this direction. Uh, so
Yeah.
yeah, so it's very different perspective
Yeah,
than
the
from
unorthodox career, but because sometimes I receive a lot of job offerings. Every yesterday I got one, and the first thing that came to my mind is, okay, I'm not sure if I'm interested in restart everything from scratch, doing like five whys and those root analysis, but it's not. When we talk about HOP, people think that we live in the perfect world. I tell people that sometimes we have some flashbacks on doing things like in the wrong way. Mainly when we have any event, unexpected event, or a recordable or something like this. It's not rare that bosses came back to hey, let's see who did it or something like this. So have you noticed something like this in your journey somewhere, or something that you say, hey, you had to put the people back to, hey, remember we are in a hop philosophy, or just me that experienced those stuff?
I mean, the Charleston plant definitely had some of those coaching moments there for sure. Fortunately, with the lithium operation at Compass, we were so early on, we didn't really have. And anyway, it was an awesome team to work with. I mean, they were all very much in line of thinking. I mean, it was a high performing team, awesome group. So I would have never expected folks to respond like that there, but kind of on the traditional view, having the new view, there one thing I'll never forget. This second company I worked for, we had an employee um, that he had it was his third recordable that year, and this employee was working under a tank and had to unclog a piece of equipment or the pipe that was underneath, injured his back, and they were adamant about terminating this employee. And having come a similar discussion of them in the past, having been brought up through the new view, I was like, hey, let's learn first, then act. Let's try. And they pretty much, I was like, I'm begging for this guy's job, and they pretty much, the plant manager and HR manager didn't leave it up to me anymore, fired him. And I'll never forget watching that man walk out crying. And I'll never, ever, it's just felt so wrong doing something like that. So, um, yeah, so it's
Yeah.
I always try and so it's I've not had a ton of experience having to deal with that up to this point with Hitachi Energy. We're working on that. That's something we're working actively with the team here, but we're making good progress though. So
So mentioning the current position you have today, you said that you are starting the journey. What do you think are the key points for progressing the journey? I always say that if you don't have a strong sponsor, you are dead. So, but give you your thoughts on this. So, what do you consider that is crucial to the journey being succeed?
So I just what you said there too. I mean, so you like Andy's put out like the kind of like the 5 steps in implementation, right? But I mean that looks different for everybody. And the first one is leadership commitment, just like what you said, right? So that's been kind of my key focus this year. And actually, just on Tuesday, we all flew out to the whole like senior leadership team for the region, met Andy Baker in Boston to do a workshop there with her, just to introduce the leadership team there. So yeah, to me, that's the first key step is getting. And fortunately, we've got a amazing team here that is, I think, fundamentally believed in what hop is before they ever had a term for hop. Especially our most senior leader here. So I mean, and they also are very strong on Lean Six Sigma, Toyota management type systems, and they what we call ITM, and in a pure lean sense, they hop and lean go hand in hand, and one of the pillars of lean is caring for the people and flipping the pyramid upside down and working with the people that actually do the work. So fortunately for most of the leaders here, it was something they already kind of believed in, just didn't, it was just a different terminology, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
good, good. Happy for you. And what do you think are the most uh the hardest enemies that the hop can face in a company? What do you, in your experience, what do you see as something that somehow put too much pressure or is trying to, bypass stuff? Because there is a discussion and I'm trying to we are putting together a training for this kind of situation because in my experience what I saw we have a always we always think about the site managers and the HR managers, those like high managers, but what I've been noticing is that the medium leadership, they are a point of if you gain these guys, everything is easier for you. But what do you see as the main enemies or the main challenges we need to face in order to have a good implementation?
I mean, I think two things, because there's a lot of similarities with Hitachi Energy and ICL. In terms of kind of structure, you have your
Oh,
different regions, and here in North America, we're really trying to push hop here from a region standpoint, but there's a larger global organization that has a lot of influence, and trying to convince that larger organization that hop is the right direction, and coaching them to do things a little differently in terms of KPIs, looking at leading versus lagging indicators, and how we were not having knee-jerk reactions. That's been one of the biggest challenges here. Is they had an injury related to a nail gun, and they banned nail guns globally, and it just little things. And same with safety, utility knives. They banned utility knives company wide. So just that's but on that kind of similarly, so I think getting the buy-in from all levels of the organization is one of the biggest challenges, and can be but also I think this it, getting past this love for the traditional lagging indicators, your total recordable incident rates,
yeah,
that's so ingrained in in people that that is how you measure safety, and that's what success is. And it's not even just from a CEO, or it's also at a board level. When I was with Compass Minerals, I met with the board regularly, and it wasn't just convincing our leadership team, but it was also convincing the board of directors that total recordable rates were not the right way to measure safety. So I think the leaders and the traditional lagging indicators seem to be, at least for me, from my experience, two of the biggest challenges that I've at least faced.
Yeah, it's always everything. I say that maybe it's not too familiar for the American audience, but we say that our job is kind of soccer, a goalkeeper, you know. Yeah, you can take all the balls until the last minute, but if you are scored, so you are bad, you know. So we
Yeah,
can do everything, but if something happens, you know, we are totally measured not by what we do, but by the results. And in many cases, the accidents are not a product of a safety or unsafety job, or the safety team bad job or something like this. It's structural, it's context-wise. Most of the accidents, at least in my experience, everybody knew and had the chance to change something that could avoid it. I mean, structural wise, research wise, somehow. But after it happened, they say, hey, where were the safety team that didn't see it? So I
yeah,
think,
and you didn't do your risk assessment, or you didn't do, where was the management of change process, or yada yada. Yeah, yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
all the same.
So,
And one more question that I want to make about the hop journey is, what are you guys measuring on the leading side of the indicator? What are you measuring that can change those
so
scenario?
So what we're and so what we are currently measuring, so that I that are consider leading indicators, is they we currently track what we call SOT, safety observation tours. They've been traditionally like a BBS audit. And we're actually making some big changes with that we're doing, instead of doing a BBS style audit. Is we Sam Goodman, which I'm sure you're familiar with. He's got a deck of cards he's put together of operationally curious questions. So we've bought you know over 100 decks of these, and we've just distributed to them. And they're just those hop related questions. What's easier to do the wrong way than it is to do it the right way type of questions. And so we have given the staffs at the site these cards that they're able to draw a card, and they go out and find somebody and draw and ask this operationally
Wow,
curious
nice.
question. And we've gotten really good success so far. I've been learning some really exciting. We've only been doing it about a month now. And I'm actually going to train on it here at their Tennessee facility tomorrow. But yeah, it's really exciting, and so that's our lead. One of our leading indicators is those SOTs, and we're hoping to do better SOTs here soon. We're also measuring hazards and hazard closure rates, action item completion rates, which are good leading indicators. But something that we're looking at for next year is doing. We're putting together a hot maturity matrix. So that ties into our whole Lean Six Sigma ITM process, and that will help. Kind of it helps with a roadmap to some extent for the company as a whole, but also allows each site to kind of mature and progress naturally as each site, because every site's journey is different, as I'm sure you have experienced. So we'll probably set kind of some percentage. We'll do a baseline on the maturity this year, and then next year set a target increase of maturing more in our hop journey by the end of next fiscal year. Um, so yeah, we're looking at that, and then we're also looking at potentially there's an ASTM method out there that's a more progressive view on injury. It's more SIF focused,
Okay.
opposed to your total reportable rate. So I know Tesla has done a lot of work on that, from what I understand. And so we're looking at that maybe as being a more, it'd be lagging, but a better lagging indicator than what's traditionally been used.
It's
So
impossible to escape from the leggings. It's always gonna be there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, can't get away from
yeah,
it.
you know. So, and final question, since our time is well, so fast, actually, I need to complain about the time. How the it's a Japanese company, right?
So it's interesting. They used to be there was a they were ABB before,
Oh,
is the was the name of the company. It was a Swiss
ABB. We have
European
ABB
company.
here in Brazil.
Yep, yep, and they've got a huge presence down there. And about 5 years ago, they did a joint venture, ABB, with
Ah,
Hitachi
okay.
Group, and then Hitachi Group purchased the rest of it, this Transformers business, that I'm a part of. Well, it's not just Transformers. There's other electrical component business is probably the best way to describe it. And they purchased the rest of it, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I think 2022, and that's when we became Hitachi Energy. So our Hitachi Energy is still headquartered out of Zurich, Switzerland, but the parent company is the Japanese Hitachi Group. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of the structure.
My final question is about those mix of cultural, stuff. So how is there any, what are the pros and cons of working in a company like this mixed? Because you came from American, Israelis, and now European and Asian companies. So what kind of difference did you notice during the approach of the new view towards those
So
cross-cultural companies?
So the Japanese parent company hasn't doesn't have a huge influence,
Oh,
honestly,
okay.
in terms of our HSE team is concerned. So they've not really had, at least that I'm aware of. I know they're involved, but not to the point that it's a roadblock in terms of HA. I mean, we have for the company, a global head of HSE that is free and independent, and a CEO that runs the company. But the European piece, at least within Hitachi Energy, seems to be a bit of more of a struggle for whatever reason. I don't know if it's something I've talked with Andy, that most Europeans she's worked with, this hasn't been a too complicated of a subject for them. She struggles with more Eastern European, but most of our the company's Western European. So not sure why, but yeah, culturally it's been definitely different, with most of the global team being European. Trying to sell hot to them has definitely been a challenge.
Wow. So just making some propaganda, we are going to receive Andy for a free workshop for the Brazilian audience. So uh, people that doesn't know her should join because she's unbelievable. She's amazing.
She's awesome.
She's awesome. Also, I will invite your former boss, Marcy, to talk to me because is in the list, but always tough to find her. And I want to thank you so much, my friend. It's a pleasure having you here. If you can, of course, we are all busy. I'm much more busy now that after joining the Hop Hub. So it's crazy, but I always
Congrats
find
on that, by
time
the way.
to. Oh, thank you. I always find time to talk to my friends, and really happy from here seeing that you are progressing and you are making a difference for the companies you have the opportunity to work for.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity. It's been good to catch up with you, and
Be prepared to
maybe
be more famous than you already are after this
well,
in broadcast.
and they got a lot, as I mentioned, they have a big presence down in Brazil. So hopefully, if I end up down there, I'm gonna definitely hit you up and go.
Oh, of
Good
course.
to
We're
connect with
gonna
you.
meet eat some churrasco in a
Yeah.
churrascaria.
It ruined me from the time I went down there. I can't go to one here in the US. It's not the same.
Not
So,
the same. I can promise you.
yeah.
Bye bye. Thank you. I will stop recording.
Okay.
Uh,